Now that you guys have seen basically all of the important stuff for the campaign overview map, let's talk about fighting wars, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of the game. The strategy is really awesome and a lot of fun to build your empire, but what's really cool about the game is all that you do here on the campaign map directly affects your battles. Any battle that you fight in this game will actually be a battle that you have set up on the campaign map. It's going to be forces that you're actually moving against. So let's be bad and let's go ahead and declare war here. I'm going to combine armies, this half stack with this half stack here in Kiev. Oh, I'm already at war with the Ottoman Empire. Let's just march right down there. This is a terrible idea. No strategy, leaving our home base undefended. But we're going to go with it. Now you guys can see here that I have moved as far as I can for this turn. And this red arrow shows that next turn I still will not quite be able to make it to the capital to attack it. That blue arrow shows that it'll be the third turn before I get there. So I will go ahead and end my turn. Now when I end my turn, all of the AI countries do take their turn. And we get to kind of see through the fog of war where we can what they're up to. Anything actually hidden behind the fog of war we won't be able to see, but even then some of these turns can take a while in the beginning where you have all these major and minor nations. Just expect that. I'm going to go ahead and end it. One important thing to note for you guys as you're watching these turns and making these movements of your own: make good use of the spacebar to fast forward, otherwise you will be sitting here for a long time.
There's unused land suitable for plantations.
And there we have it. Our first turn is over with. Going back to our military forces, which are somewhere here in the Ukraine. Let's march them south again. And as we saw, they're not quite within range. The movement prediction was correct. Given that this is just a tutorial for you guys, I'm not going to actually do any more upgrades or recruitment. I could, of course, if I wanted to. You want to keep recruiting units as you go throughout your campaign, mix it up, spend your gold, all that fun stuff. Let's just go ahead and move on to the attack. Here is how you engage in an actual real-time battle. We are now within range of this territory right here of the Ottoman Empires. Once you have your battle deployment screen visible, you can see your own deployed army with its total numbers as well as the enemy's defenders. Right here they have more defenders, but a lot of these are just mob, armed with whatever they have been able to steal. Looks like pitchforks. You also have some options. You can continue the siege of the town, and the longer that your siege goes on, they will actually get some deserters, their morale goes down, and it just kind of wears away at them. Keep in mind though that if you continue the siege and more turns pass, it takes about 3 turns for the city to actually surrender or just have no choice but to fight. During those 3 turns, they could get reinforcements up to attack you from behind and break the siege. You can, of course, assault, and this is actually what goes into the real-time battle mode. You can auto-resolve, which just kind of rolls the die based on the stats of the forces. This is dangerous because the computer always kind of fudges the numbers for the AI's behalf. You're going to lose a lot of troops that you don't really need to, even if you win the battle. And you will lose battles in auto-resolve that you yourself would be able to fight through and win without any kind of problem. Only use auto-resolve if you're pressed for time, and if your forces are overwhelmingly superior. You can also break the siege and fall back, or demand the surrender and hope that they just turn the city over to us. Now, if they do surrender, their troops are allowed to leave and march back to their territory. Let's go ahead and try that. They refuse to surrender. Now that they've refused our surrender, let's go ahead and attack. Let's use these Austrian troops to go over the last few things about the real-time battle screen. There's a constant real-time radar map in the lower left here. You can actually click, double-click to move around. and see what's going on. You can see the balance of power bar here, which shows your forces and your allies' forces versus the allied enemy forces, how they relate. You can zoom in on the map and actually see individual troops there. You can also see the time remaining. If you initiate combat in a campaign, it is then your responsibility to win that battle within the hour or retreat. If you don't, you automatically lose and both sides withdraw. This kind of keeps things moving on the battlefield. There are of course a few options for time. You can fast forward, normal forward, standard play mode, slow motion, and pause. Slow motion can look pretty awesome, actually. Cannonballs skipping around. As you move around individual units, you have a few more options. If they are currently moving, you can tell them to halt. You can tell them to go into melee mode. You can also toggle grouping. You can tell them to withdraw, which is not an option in this random battle. You can have them guard, where they will actually engage enemy units that get too close and then pursue them for a bit. In skirmish mode, which is an option for certain light infantry, they will spread out and change their combat stance. And occasionally, if your army has been fortified for a while, they can actually deploy stakes as well. Where did they come from? These stakes will really hurt cavalry. Occasionally, you can also have them toggle certain kinds of bayonets. In this case, plug bayonets. Now, plug bayonets are a unique case. They actually go into the barrel of the musket, so once you have this unit deploy the plug bayonets, they will not be able to fight with their muskets any longer. They will just have the ability to melee with them. There are those bayonets right in the end of the muskets. For cavalry, you will eventually have the option for different formations, including this one right here, which is the wedge formation. Once a unit has broken in battle, they will rout and retreat off of the battle map. If you had a second army in reserve nearby within reinforcement range, these troops that you have lost in battle will actually be replaced with those reinforcements as you lose them. When you move a unit of troops, always be sure that they're actually facing the enemy. Units attacked in their flanks or their rears will have a huge morale drop, and you can instantly lose a battle if you're facing the wrong way. Just as an example right here, these line infantry are currently facing off against bowmen. Usually, that's a pretty easy win for the line infantry, unless they were to be flanked by Warrior Society infantry on their left flank, catching them by surprise. Now they are more concerned about the flank, as well as the current attack by the bowmen. Not good for them at all. So how do you make sure that your units are always facing the correct direction? Well, as they're marching, you can press the spacebar to see their current movement and how they will array themselves. Notice the point of the arrow right there facing towards the enemy. If you click and drag, you can actually choose which way they face. That is right click and drag. You can also space them out quite far, or keep them bunched up for a quick, fast march. Let's go ahead and have these guys charge up here. Notice how I right-clicked and told these men to form up just behind this tree line, facing those bowmen. Now they're going to form up. and we're going to attack them in their flank. There's an immediate effect on the bowmen. Their morale begins to waver, and now they are broken. So remember, don't run your men too hard. Always keep careful track of which direction the enemy is and which way your men are facing. And don't let your general get killed. That's pretty much the basics of ground combat in the real-time battle mode. So what about naval combat? And yes, there is naval combat, and yes, it is awesome. There's just something about this age of naval combat that's just very fascinating, where it's just a very intense, intimate battle. Once you get into a naval engagement, a lot of it has to do with how you set up your navies ahead of time. You want to have your forces matched evenly. The rates of your ships are very important. A first rate is a massive multi-deck battleship. It is a huge hulking behemoth. It is well armored and slow, but quite powerful. It has a nasty, nasty broadside, whereas a rocket ship has a very small crew, is quite weak, but has very powerful long-range rockets. Having it in the front of your fleet is probably a bad idea, though. And then you have some smaller ships, like this 6th rate right here, which just has a single deck, but is more lightly armored, and can therefore maneuver more quickly. So let's say that you already have your ships carefully arrayed, your fleet was carefully purchased, you have the exact navy that you want to have. Once you get into the fight, what is the most important thing? Well, that is, up here on the top, the wind. This is still the age of sail, so you will have to use the wind to your advantage. In my case, I'm going to turn my ships right here into the wind. There go the sails catching the wind, and this will allow them to speed up and be more maneuverable, whereas if I turn a ship against the wind, it essentially crawls. Let's go ahead and get these guys moving. You can actually group ships together just like you can land units by using that control key and then a number, in this case number 1. Once you have your ships grouped, open up the formation panel and give them a formation. I most commonly use the line astern formation, which has them move in a straight line as 1. So we'll give your ships a consistent series of broadsides as they pass by the enemy ships. You can of course just have your ships move along by themselves. Now, one exception to the wind, of course, is your steamships. These come much later in the game, and they do have a steam paddle to assist in their movement. They're not very powerful, they are only double deck, with, let's see, how many cannons? 34 cannons, not very many at all. But the ability to move against the wind is a pretty huge advantage if you use it carefully. Definitely think it over before you decide to add a whole bunch of steamships to your navy. Do you want the more powerful, first-rate ships of the line, or do you want that ability to flank away from the wind? Going back to that rocket ship briefly, one advantage to those rockets is the possibility of catching ships on fire. There's a chance, if the ship burns for long enough, that it will actually reach the powder in the armory of the ship, and the entire thing will explode in a massive fireball. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, to be honest. Alright, so we have our carefully selected fleet here. We're moving with the wind for the most part. How about the different types of shot? Each ship that uses a standard cannon has the ability to go between different types of shot. We have our standard round shot, which punches right through holes and does a ton of damage. Next up, we have chain shot, which actually fires 2 cannonballs linked with a section of chain. This causes the 2 cannonballs to spin It will actually wrap around the rigging holding up the sails, and the sails themselves, ripping massive holes and causing massive damage to the ship's ability to move. You can actually bring the main mast of ships down by using chain shot carefully, or just rip their sails apart until they can't move anymore and they're dead in the water, just waiting to be attacked. Our final shot is grape shot. This is like the shotgun buckshot of cannons. It fires a lot of small pieces of shrapnel at the enemy ship, and it is absolutely devastating at close range against the crew. I'm going to swing this heavy first rate around right here, and I'm going to use the fire broadside right button to have all the cannons hold fire until my command. I'm going to drop anchor, and this bar right here shows the right side cannons reloading. At any point I can command them to go ahead and fire the broadside. Now that we have almost half of the cannons loaded and ready to go with that grape shot, I'm going to go ahead and let loose. There goes the grape shot to devastating effect. Wow, that is some thick smoke. So now they are on fire and they have taken massive losses. Here come more of those rockets, setting things on fire. Let's make these guys group 2. If your ships have a nice angle and you want to just have them hang out and engage from their current position, you can have them drop anchor with the backspace key. The drop anchor button is essentially a hold position button. We'll go ahead and have these guys move in though. Once a ship has taken enough damage, it will usually surrender, at which point it is out of the battle and it will not be engaged by enemy forces or your own. Now, just because a ship has surrendered does not mean that it will not sink. Usually ships will only surrender if they're completely outnumbered or if they're so damaged they're about to sink. However, sometimes they surrender too late and they sink no matter what. After the battle, ships that have not sunk can usually be claimed by the victor and added to their own navy, although they will have to be repaired before they're much use. Unfortunately, because of the way that I went with my ships originally, the enemy fleet now has the advantage of the wind. They can still move freely while my ships are having to turn against the wind to re-engage. You can kind of fight back against this by zigzagging back and forth to use the wind to your advantage. Another option is to actually switch your ships to that chain shot, aim for the enemy sails, and try to slow them down. Ah, my admiral's flagship has surrendered, but it's too late. It's already sinking, and everyone's jumping off. That is a monstrous ship. By hovering over your ships, you can actually see its current stats. Here, the Maria still has 103 of its original 106 cannons, and it still has 322 of its original 327 crew members. That's not a bad amount of losses so far. The wind is shifting slightly as the battle continues, and we're able to move a bit faster even in this direction. Be sure to keep a close eye on your ship's sail and hull damage. These bars above your ship show you its current condition, and there goes a mast. As you can see from the bar, our right hull, I believe, is quite damaged. Let's take a look. Yep, lots of holes, and it is also on fire. If one side of your ship is taking too much damage, you can actually turn it away from the enemy ships with its better side. You can also see the white bar above your ships, which is its current sail condition. The more holes that your sails and rigging get, the slower your ship moves. And by using chain shot, you can quickly wear down your enemy's sails. Looking at this enemy ship right here, you can actually see how they've lost one of their front masts, and their sails are now very damaged according to their stats bar, which means that this ship is basically about 1/3 crippled, if not half crippled. Even the wind can't help them without a mast. And one of our ships is burning to the ground. Or perhaps burning to the ocean, and it has exploded. This has caught other nearby ships on fire. Keep in mind as you fight your naval battles that the direction your ships are facing is important, just like it is with your ground armies. You don't want the enemy to fight your ships from the rear. If your ships are attacked in the rear, it does affect their morale, and of course there is less armor back there. Use the smaller ships in your navy to mop up after a big battle, or to chase stragglers that are trying to get away. You do have the option to board enemy ships as well. The option to board is best used with a ship that is much larger than the ship you're trying to board. You want to outnumber their crew members as much as possible. Also be sure to use the wind to your advantage to be able to actually catch the enemy ship. And as you move in, switch your cannons to grape shot to take out crew members before you have to fight them on the deck. Now that our ship is finally within boarding range, they're going to swing out the grappling hooks and latch on to the enemy ship and reel it in like a fish. This ship has 223 enemy crewmen compared to our 261, so it's going to be a pretty close fight. In addition, their other battleship is hammering both of us from the front. Our guys are swinging from ship to ship, climbing down the ropes, and attacking. The deck-to-deck fighting begins. Our boarding has been successful, and the enemy ship has surrendered. Our first rate is now good to fight again. We're going to go ahead and get our crew members back on board and peel away from the surrendered ship. So that's the basics of naval combat. Make sure to carefully compare your stacks of naval forces against your enemy before you engage in battle. You want to be evenly matched because an unbalanced naval battle will go very quickly against you and you'll just lose whatever units you already had. Don't fight unbalanced naval battles. Don't be afraid to run and come back with bigger and better ships. Once in battle, be sure to use groups to navigate your ships around the battle area together to maintain a constant broadside against your enemies as your ships go by line or abreast, however you want to use your formations. Always watch your wind because it will change. Use the wind to your advantage. Try to match your larger ships with the enemy's larger ships, and don't let your weaker ships get cornered. If you have the option, be sure to use boarding to quickly grasp onto an enemy battleship and take them over. If an enemy ship is trying to run, like this one is right here, switch to chain shot instead of trying to chase them down. Take out their sails before they can get away. After you've won a battle, be sure to run down as many enemy ships as possible and don't let any get away. The more ships that you cause to surrender without actually sinking during the battle, the more options you have after the battle to either sell those enemy ships or add them to your own fleet. Hope you guys have found that useful, and good luck in your future naval combat. So where do you get Empire Total War? Well, the best place to get it would be, of course, Steam. I would be patient and wait for a good Steam sale because it is regularly on sale for $5 or less. There is some DLC, as you can see. A lot of it is actually just extra units to use during your campaigns. I would pick through it and see if there's any units that actually catch your attention. If you're planning on playing through the Road to Independence campaign, you might want the Elite Units of America, which has some actual historical units that you will see during your campaign. There are also some larger DLCs, like the Warpath campaign DLC, which adds the Native Americans as playable factions, and they bring some unique styles of fighting to the table, and I would actually recommend the Warpath campaign. It was a lot of fun. It definitely adds some unique elements to Empire Total War. Let's talk about Darthmod. The best place to get Darthmod for Empire Total War is on ModDB. That is moddb.com/mods/Darthmod-Empire. This is a massive, massive mod, and in my opinion it is a must-have for anyone who really wants to get the most out of their gameplay in Empire Total War. You can download it right here from the Darthmod mod page on Mod Database. And once you have it downloaded, it's very simple to install, very self-explanatory. Just be sure to follow the instructions carefully and you will be good to go. As you can see, it's very highly rated, but what does Darthmod actually bring to the table? In short, there is no short answer for what Darthmod brings to the table. However, its biggest changes come from the gameplay and AI. The AI in Darthmod is 1,000 times better than the AI in Vanilla Empire. In addition, you get tons of more realistic and more authentic flags, uniforms, sound effects, and options for your game. It's just incredibly deep and really a must-have. It improves the game without totally overhauling and changing how the game works. As the creator of Darthmod calls it, it is Empire Total War, the game as it should have been from the beginning. It's like a gigantic, polished community patch, and it is fantastic.